Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always this Monday, or is it Tuesday, by Denny Carter. The listeners can never know. We are not allowed by NBC Legal to take you that far behind the corner and say accidentally reveal that it's Halloween and we're waiting to go trick-or-treating with our children. That's allowed right. To reveal what day of the week it is. We're going to break down the Rams backfield, the Cowboys running back situation, and how it might not change. Whether this time it counts with Romeo Dobbs, because it always counts with Romeo Dobbs. And then Denny mentioned 3 Ravens, each more dispiriting than the last, that he apparently wants to talk about from his waiver wire column. But Denny, the only thing you ever want to talk about, it seems like to me, is Zach Wilson. Why do you trot all over the fine people of New Jersey, Long Island, New York State? And why can't you just tell them that their quarterback's good? Why do you always want to talk about this?
Well, I'm doubling down now on Zach Wilson because there is no other avenue for me. Okay, I've said for a year and a half now that Zach Wilson is definitely not a starter in the NFL, and I believe that he has proven me right this season. I mean, I know that the Jets have been able to take the air out of the ball for much of the season, establish it like it's like 1976 with Breece Hall. And that actually has worked. It's a very fragile way to approach the game, but it has worked. As soon as they had to chase points and as soon as they were forced out of their comfort zone in week 8 against New England, it all fell to pieces very predictably. And Pat, I have to tell you that I took much pleasure in seeing cracks in the armor of Jets fans who had steeled themselves for 18 months now against any criticism of Zach Wilson. They said, no, wait a second. What is this? What is going on here? Who is this guy? He's the guy. He's your guy. He's the guy you've been defending. It's just that he was exposed.
Oh, no. He hit him with the exposed. That's my favorite sports word, to be honest. And they have fully exposed the Brooklyn Nets, as Mike Breen talking.
Right. That's good. That's
it is one of my favorite sports words. And I mean, it's hard to say Zach Wilson got exposed because has he ever been not exposed? But I couldn't decide, by the way, my angle in this game, I couldn't decide if it was funny or sad that, the Jets are on this 4-game winning streak. The fans are feeling optimistic for the first time in forever. And then the worst New England Patriots team of the 21st century easily ends their winning streak. It was so they talk about a rug pull. That felt like a rug pull.
That's the thing, is that the Patriots are not good. Like they're not good, and they still won. I know that the final score was closer than the game actually was because the Jets came back a little bit, scored a late touchdown, I believe. I don't know. I've never watched the game, so that's what I heard. But Zach Wilson was terrible. If you look at the numbers, and I do look at the numbers, over the past 2 weeks, no one has a lower completion rate over expected, and no one has a lower EPA per dropback than Zach Wilson. So it is truly, truly disastrous. And honestly, like if Robert Saleh is trying to save his job, and I don't know if he's there yet. I
don't think he's on the hot seat just yet.
It's not going to. I think it could. I think with a total collapse, we could be talking about
even the total collapse. I mean, obviously he's not on the hot seat now at 5-3.
No,
we weren't trying to imply that, but I think even if they finished like 5-12, he probably wouldn't be on the hot seat. I think it seems like one of those situations where the roster was bad enough. There's enough building blocks in place that he will get a third year no matter what.
In some metrics, this is the best defense in the NFL, this Jets defense. Their special teams is very good by almost every metric. Their offense can be efficient, decent, fine, usable, workable. I'm trying to think of 15 other words I can describe if they had another quarterback in there. And I know, folks will say, well, you just want Flacco in there because he drops back 65 times a game. Well, maybe there's a happy medium for the Jets. Maybe there's a happy medium where Flacco comes in and they don't throw 65 times a game, and
I think that would be worse than even watching Zach Wilson.
No, honestly, there has to be some way to propel this team into the postseason. I believe this is a playoff team. This is a wild card type team if they can get halfway decent quarterback play, and right now they don't have it.
Well, it's the other part of that equation too, where it's not just the poor quarterback play. It's just Sunday's highlighted just what a special young player Breece Hall is, because that formula will not be replicated the rest of the season. James Robinson is not the lightning to Michael Carter's Thunder. And Michael Carter, who in theory can maybe be the Lightning, just isn't that kind of player. And I don't know what they're going to have to do. If they're going to have to go behind like door number 4, they've got to find like some speed element to complement like the pass catching, to complement the power. And I just don't think it's there. And to the Jets, so good. Something I always harp on, good teams beat bad teams. So the Jets were beating bad teams, but the winning streak was fueled by beating Brett Rippon, by beating Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky, by beating whatever this version of the Green Bay Packers is, where it was already kind of a bit of an illusion. Breece Hall was not a bit of an illusion, and there was nothing, nothing behind door number 2 on Sunday for the. And it's just I do not think the Jets will be making the playoffs. I will say that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem that way, but I will say that they could have a very decent offense, like with Garrett Wilson. If Elijah Moore were used at all, I mean,
he might be traded by the time people listen to this show.
I know, and I understand that relationship has soured to the point where I don't think it can be repaired. So I understand that, but I also in a vacuum, okay, which is the greatest way to start any argument, in a vacuum. If you were able to have Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, and Elijah Moore on the field at the same time, that's a pretty good trio. So I do think that they have the personnel to make a postseason push, but they can't get there if Zach Wilson is forced into these pass-heavy game scripts, and I think that will happen. I mean, this week they are set up for a massacre.
We'll say who they're playing.
Don't say who they're playing?
No, say who they're playing so that people know.
Against Buffalo.
Playing the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be bad. And the formula will get further exposed.
Exposed. Yeah, we're going to have to come up with a new word. It'll be beyond exposure.
Yeah. By the way, producer Adam points out Jets coach Robert Saleh is the 4th best coach of the year odds, and you're trying to put him in the hot seat.
Yeah. All right. Yes. Adam, you're right to throw the odds out there, because it would there is no scenario where Robert Saleh loses his job. I will say that.
Denny's he's just a hater. He's just an absolute
I
hater.
am. I also have an ongoing tiff with some Jets fans.
Denny, if you're a Jets hater, it's probably not a secret to a lot of people who follow me on Twitter. I'm a bit of a Rams hater.
You are. Well, and thankfully there's nobody to push back.
There is. Well, there actually are, but
really?
No Chargers fans. I've never once had a Chargers fan come back at me, because they obviously don't exist.
They don't.
The Rams fan, they may be small in number. They are loud in their typing usage. They do come at me. Not coming at me this year because, man, I don't know if you saw the scene at SoFi Stadium. Oh, man. But it quite literally is like 75% 49ers fans.
That's so demoralizing. Insane.
So demoralizing. And it takes me no pleasure, really, to be honest, because while I'm a Rams hater, while I took it quite personally when they left what some might argue is my declining Midwestern town and moved to sunny Southern California, I did take it personally. But I liked Sean McVay. I like Matthew Stafford. I like Aaron Donald. Well, I don't know. Aaron Donald sure does beat up a lot of people. But it seems like he's provoked a lot, though.
He's frightening.
He's kind of a scary guy. I liked Cam Akers. I like Cooper. I guess I kind of like Cooper Kupp.
Kupp. What's not to like? I don't know.
I mean, maybe just cover him one time ever.
I've never heard him talk, so I actually don't know.
He actually seems kind of nice.
Yeah.
I like a lot of the individual personalities in the Rams, but man, the Rams are. So the Rams came out of their bye week. They went into their bye week with a win over the Carolina Panthers. Kind of a nice reset game. They have their bye to totally reset their season, and they come out, and the plan was give 12 touches to someone named Ronnie Rivers.
You love Ronnie Rivers.
I do. I am obsessed with this. Someone named Ronnie Rivers out-touched Darrell Henderson 12-6. Out-touched him 10-2 in the first half. So this had nothing to do with garbage time, of which there was an entire quarter, of which Sean McVay got Cooper Kupp injured during. One of the poor coaching decisions I've seen all year. And Sean McVay immediately after the game was like, wow, I wish I had not done that. He was offered an immediate mea culpa on having Cooper Kupp was running routes with 1 minute left in the game. That was 31-14.
Really stunning stuff.
But clearly no faith whatsoever in Darrell Henderson. They're trying any running back not named Darrell Henderson. Do fantasy managers need to add Ronnie Rivers? Or is it still just wait for Kyron Williams, who could be back as early as this week?
I mean, Cam Akers could be back as early as this week.
Yeah, good point.
If he is still there past the trade deadline, which is November 1st, I guess Tuesday. So if he's still there,
You're
then
not allowed to say that.
right. Today is Tuesday, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, it could be.
We're looking into it, but I really am of the mind that most fantasy managers, unless you're super down bad at running back, can kind of write off this backfield, because we're talking about 5 guys who may or may not be active in a given week, whose roles are completely undefined. You have Malcolm Brown taking goal line carries.
You got 2 goal line carries in the first half, so the game was still in doubt. And again, this is with Darrell Henderson, totally healthy, by the way.
Right, Darrell Henderson, who it seems to be in week 8 was the passing down back, but got virtually no early down work. That was Ronnie Rivers, workload. And then, Akers coming back. They have expressed some excitement about Kyren Williams. He is the one guy I would want to roster in that backfield going forward, because I think that there is a very narrow avenue to him emerging as maybe not a workhorse, but the lead back, the de facto lead back. Another thing, again, that's hurting all of these guys is that the Rams have the 5th highest pass rate over expected in the league. Like, they're not trying to run it, and they can't run it, and they're so bad. And another thing is their defense is so bad right now, at least, that they're not playing with leads where they can actually run the ball or at least pretend to run some sort of balanced offense. They can't even do that. So I do think that fantasy managers would do well to look elsewhere. Kind of like what I was saying with the Ravens backfield. When they're all healthy, it's just a mess.
So are we saying to drop Darrell Henderson?
If you need room, if you're struggling between him and another guy who you don't know if you can drop to pick up somebody else or this week, yeah, I think that you can. 10-team leagues, he should not be rostered. 12-team leagues, I think you try to hang on. I do want to say one thing for Ronnie Rivers real quick. He is a real person.
Yeah, he is. I want to do a quick spiel before you get into Ronnie Rivers. He's a 23-year-old undrafted rookie. He's 5'7". He went to Fresno State. He was signed by the Cardinals after the draft, then cut. Signed by the Seahawks and cut on August 28th. He was not signed to the Rams until September 15th. So this is an undrafted rookie who's already been cut twice. This is how desperate the Rams are. He's now the Rams feature back as they wait on Kyren Williams.
Right. 5 years at Fresno State, 3,400 rushing yards, 51 total touchdowns, 150 catches over those 5 seasons. So, productive, but not the kind of guy who becomes usually a lead back. I mean, 5 years. 5 years.
5 years is too many, or maybe 3 too many.
Very slight of frame. It's just, and then Cam Akers. I'm not entirely disinterested in Cam Akers if he comes back and they want to try it again.
That seems like that's not happening.
No, I mean, it's very, very small chance. It's a small chance that he'll ever see the field again for the Rams.
So Darrell Henderson, I think ideally you try to keep him in a 12-team league, but we know that ideal kind of is out the window at this point. We're 8 weeks into the fantasy regular season. A lot of teams are now in position where they're like fighting for their life. They have to like maximize their roster every week. They can't really be thinking ahead to the playoffs. If you're in that kind of situation, it's hard to see how cutting Darrell Henderson will come back to haunt you.
Right.
And Ronnie Rivers, I mean, I guess in a 12-team league, if you're just totally desperate at running back, I guess maybe you take a flyer on him, but you can almost totally ignore Ronnie Rivers too. I think we both agree. It's just all about waiting on Kyren Williams.
If Rivers had gotten the goal line touches, I would be way more interested, because those are the things we need. We need receptions and we need touches inside the 10-yard line for running backs. We got neither of those things with Ronnie Rivers. So he's the classic, what we call a trap back. He's getting all the empty calorie stuff between the 20s, and that's not going to get you any fantasy points. Like, he could have 10 carries, 12 carries a game and score 3 fantasy points every week.
So there's a YouTube video of Ronnie Rivers, an 8-minute interview where he just talks about how much he looks up to Chase Edmonds and being a trap back, and how that's who he's modeling his game after. Is he wants to get enough work where it seems like he should be relevant, but not enough high value touches where he can ever score fantasy points for you.
I see you've been grinding YouTube again.
Yeah. So Ronnie Rivers, yeah, probably a scam. Kyron Williams, probably a scam too, but they have clearly put all their eggs in the Kyron Williams basket. So, and again, it seems like he'll probably come back this week.
Yeah, he's available in half of leagues, so people should pick him up for sure this week.
Denny, people who have been rostering Tony Pollard all year have been getting decent flex usage. They've been waiting for Ezekiel Elliott to finally miss a game. Not that we root for that sort of. We actually don't root for that sort of thing. But Ezekiel Elliott misses the game. Tony Pollard scores 3 touchdowns. Every dot is connected, except for Tony Pollard still only handles. So Tony Pollard's played 54 career games, Denny. He has never once handled 20 touches.
Right.
He reached 15 yesterday. That's a number he's only reached 8 times. It seemed like they basically didn't change their Tony Pollard usage at all. They view him as like a true. That's overstating it, obviously. But in terms of like the workload he can handle, they didn't change at all. This is the game where they score 50 points. They're in like garbage time mode for quarters on end. And they still worked very hard to manage his workloads. And it just seemed like this lane is not changing. They view him as a true change of pace back, someone who comes in and changes up the looks, the defenses are seeing, or just maybe a smaller guy that they don't think can hold up the way Ezekiel Elliott can. And so as good as this game was, the Cowboys are now on bye. Ezekiel Elliott will probably be back in week 10. Has anything at all changed in the Cowboys back? I'm asking this in the most leading fashion possible.
Yeah, right.
But has anything at all changed in the Cowboys backfield?
I will quote Jerry Jones and saying, no, nothing has changed and nothing will change. Immediately after the game, all the Cowboys brass
quite literally immediately
flocked to the defense of Zeke and said, hey, whatever you saw on the field today was fine, but it doesn't matter. None of that matters. We're sticking with Zeke as our RB1. As Zeke goes, we go, which is a really, really bleak situation. It's
very bleak, from Cowboys PR man George Orwell. Don't believe what you saw from Tony Pollard. Don't believe what
you definitely want to instead, have your quarterback go as your team goes, or your team goes as your quarterback. You don't want to link it to the old running back who gets 3 yards of carry. Tony Pollard is a change of pace back who is extremely explosive. He is now second behind only Ken Walker in breakaway rate per Pro Football Focus. He has 9 runs of over 15 yards on just 81 attempts. 9 15-yard runs. It would take Ezekiel Elliott 7 years to get that many. So maybe more. Anyway, Pollard is not changing. It was nice to get that. That's what you were hoping for. You were hoping for 1 or 2 or 3 maybe of those games, but pump the brakes on thinking that that's going to change the minds of anybody in Dallas. It's not.
And maybe it's a good time with the Cowboys and bye. Maybe a good time to sell high on Tony Pollard.
That's actually a great call, I think.
Not to get too galaxy brain about him. He's a good player who will continue to help your team, but he will never be more valuable than he is right now.
That's right. And if you have someone in your league who is really hungry for running backs and say, okay, I saw that guy, the Pollard guy, he scores 3 touchdowns the other day, and you're going to give him to me. Okay, sure. If you have someone like that in your league, you go with it. Now, folks, savvy folks who are listening to this show would
not in my league
rebuff that and then file a lawsuit.
They already have, but we're getting an injunction. Or not an injunction. I sound like I have no idea what I'm talking about.
We're lawyers first and foremost.
Yeah, but no, we're going to beat that back really easily. We got a really, really talented legal team. And so, there's plenty of leagues, guys, where, trust me, people will do this. So try to trade Tony Pollard. Denny, Romeo Dobbs, 4 catches, 62 yards, a touchdown against the Buffalo Bills, 7 targets. The yards, the second most of the season. This time it counts, ? For Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah, all it took was everybody else getting hurt in the Packers offense, and then this time it counted with Romeo Dobbs on Sunday Night Football on NBC. Let's see here. His usage was really great. 31 routes on 35 dropbacks for Aaron Rodgers. No one ran more routes. He led all receivers in targets. Of course, Christian Watson left that game early. I thought it was a Christian Watson game. Man. I felt like this was going to be a breakout game for Christian Watson, and he unfortunately suffered.
Before you get on the Dobbs, so this is a concussion. This isn't like an injury-prone type of thing.
No,
but when these rookie receivers get hurt in the spring or training camp, it is it's always like an 8 ball. They just can't get out from behind. It almost if you see a rookie receiver hurt in the summer, There are some Odell Beckham exceptions, but man, oh man, it just seems like they get behind the training 8-ball and just can never, ever catch up as rookies. And it happens so often.
So I think from a non-analytical viewpoint, which is not exactly my expertise, but I'm going to go with it for a second. Aaron Rodgers came out and, as you would say, subtweeted Romeo Dobbs this week. And he said, we need to get other guys involved in the passing offense because the guys who are out there right now are not getting it done. He was only talking about Romeo Dobbs, who had made a number of boneheaded errors in the 2 games before this pass game against the Bills, fumbles, drop passes, a drop pass in the end zone on a perfectly thrown ball from Aaron Rodgers 2 weeks ago. So, really tough action for rookie receiver, especially working with Aaron Rodgers in this organization that does not particularly love rookie receivers. I think that Romeo Dobbs responded really well against the Bills. He had a circus catch in the corner of the end zone. He had another great sideline catch against, I believe it was against double coverage. Anyway, he came through. He did everything he could to earn Aaron Rodgers' confidence back. Again, not exactly analytics, but if it puts him in good graces with the big man, and I'm not talking about God, I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers, then that's good.
With Rodgers, by the way, yeah, I mean, a lot of people find that unbecoming these days, and I guess it probably is unbecoming the way he just like directly called out his teammates. It did used to be a lot more common, and it used to be a mind game, that was played like all the time by coaches and quarterbacks in the media. That is like very steadily faded in the 21st century, and it seemed to kind of work for a week. I mean, it was 4 catches, but something. By the way, my Aaron Rodgers thing, you may have seen me tweeting about this.
Yeah,
like maybe just do that all the time. Like in the fourth quarter, I know he's getting some soft looks, but he was like converting big passes down it was almost like he finally accepted, like, these are who the guys are that I'm throwing to.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like he just finally accepted it. It's like, fine, I will throw the ball to Samori Toure. Like, fine, I will throw the ball to Romeo Dobbs. Fine, I'll even throw the ball to Big Bob Tunyon. And it almost seemed like he was playing, they were down 2 scores in the fourth quarter, 3 scores actually. But it seemed like he was finally just cutting it loose. Like, dude, you got to move on. Like, I know you're not happy about the way like the summer went. Like, understandably so, your football soulmate said he'd rather go just be terrible with Derek Carr. That will sting. I will admit that will sting. But you got to get over it. This is who you're throwing to. And yes, it kind of stinks. They're going to drop 60 to 70-yard touchdowns with alarming frequency. Like, we're talking alarming. The amount of 70-yard touchdowns Aaron Rodgers receivers drops is genuinely alarming. Yeah, but it's just going to happen, and you got to get used to it.
It's definitely in like the 20 range.
It's serious over the past 5 years. I mean, it's like, maybe it's just because Aaron Rodgers attempts more of those throws, so we notice it more. But man, if you're a Packers wide receiver, I would consider. I know Aaron Rodgers can be kind of a jerk, but if you're wide open and he hits you, I would consider catching it down.
I think we notice it because Rodgers puts it right on his guys.
Yeah. I know. It's never like, it's just a step too far.
No.
Or slightly underthrown.
He doesn't miss ever on those throws. No. It's pretty incredible. I know that, he's not exactly at his peak right now. I know that he probably is on his way out career-wise. I get that. But man, I mean, at his best, I don't know if there's ever a better pure passer than Aaron Rodgers. I digress, but still.
No, there's never a better. I don't think I've ever seen a better drop in the bucket, like downfield passer, especially. Like you said, it is like he's dropping it in a bucket. And just to further, I felt like Aaron Rodgers this year, Zoomers literally won't remember this, but there were times when Kobe Bryant, would stop shooting because he'd be tired of like the media, like, why does Kobe shoot 40 times a game? Yeah. So he would very passive aggressively go like 2 quarters without shooting and like only be passing. And I kind of feel like Aaron Rodgers has been doing that like all year. And it seemed like last night I finally saw him cutting it loose a bit. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but it almost seemed like he finally came to an acceptance, and maybe we'll see him playing a little better down the stretch. I don't know. Probably really projecting here.
Hopefully.
Denny, the Baltimore Ravens apparently have every single player you want to talk about this week. Let's start with Kenyon Drake. Gus Edwards looking very unlikely for week 9, correct? Am I wrong?
Well, he's listed as questionable, but I feel like Harbaugh coming out this early, it's a Monday night game against the Saints, right? He's coming out on Monday, the previous Monday, and saying, he's questionable with the hamstring injury he picked up. I feel like there's like a really small chance of him playing this week, but that's just me assuming. I don't
And the Ravens have not had much luck pushing their luck with injuries. So
exactly. Yeah, that's another thing. So that makes Kenyon Drake a thing once again. 2 weeks after I told you not to pick him up, I'm now telling you to pick him up. Because, well, okay. So here's the difference. Last week and the week before, really, when Edwards had a nice game, 16 carries, 2 touchdowns against someone, the Bengals or the Browns, and Drake was clearly the number 2 back. He had 11 carries in that game. So Drake came in for Gus Edwards against Tampa last Thursday and served as the workhorse. Okay, like Justice Hill was hardly involved at all. Drake ran almost all the routes. He saw the only targets among running backs for the Ravens. He saw a good number of carries. Here's the thing that's shifted. The other thing that shifted: the Ravens in 3 of their past 4 games have been way under pass rate over expected. Right, like they have tilted almost to the extreme toward the run, and that is really changed the way this offense produces fantasy points. Lamar can still get there because of the rushing, but it lops off a lot of routes for Andrews, for Duvernay, for everybody. For Bateman is going to be out. We'll talk about him in a second, but it should fuel some opportunity for Kenyon Drake in this game, in a game that they should be able to control against the Saints.
So you just spend 3 minutes on the Ravens running game. You're talking about how there's fewer routes. And then you inform me you want to talk about Devin Duvernay and Isaiah Likely.
Right. Well,
so what are the cases for Devin Duvernay and Isaiah Likely, Denny?
Well, Mark Andrews suffered a shoulder injury last Thursday against the Bucs. Apparently, it's nothing, although it seemed like something.
It's definitely something because it happened in the second quarter and then he did not return.
I mean, he immediately left. He was immediately declared out, and he was seen in street clothes.
He was, of course, already dealing with a knee injury.
He has the knee.
And another factor on top for all these Ravens injuries, they have a bye in week 10. So it's kind of like the classic, maybe this is hold them out week 9. We have the bye. Try to get them actually healthy instead of the fake healthy. We keep getting them immediately re-injured.
Right.
So that is, with any Ravens health decision this week, keep in mind that they do have a bye in week 10.
Right. So Isaiah Likely, who, as sickos who play preseason DFS will know, is pretty good. Like, he is kind of a wide out in a tight end's body. He ran a ton of routes after Andrews exited that game against the Bucs. He had 6 catches on 7 targets for 77 yards and a touchdown against Tampa. He was targeted on 20% of his routes, which is, it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible. Honestly, for a tight end, it's actually decent. I think that Likely would become like, I'd be pretty confident plugging and playing him if in a 12-team league, if Andrews misses this game against the Saints. Now, the Saints are a tough tight end matchup, but I just think his role in the offense would basically be as the wide receiver 2, maybe even as the top pass catching option with Bateman out and with Andrews out. I could see Likely leading the team in targets now that I talk myself into it.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson had 8 second half completions against the Bucs, and 3 of them were to Isaiah Likely. One of them was a touchdown. They clearly love the tight end position. They love to target the tight end position. So it'll feel like obvious dot connecting, but that's because it is this obvious dot connecting. And
it can be easy.
Yeah, sometimes. It can actually be easy. And Mark Andrews, someone to really, I think they're going to hold him out a week. Like, why would you not?
I wouldn't be shocked if he were held out. I mean,
he was already seemed like he could barely move with his knee.
Right. They have to have him. Like, that offense does not work without Mark Andrews as the focal point of the passing game.
And man, so they've had 3 questionable players playing in week 8, and all 3 of them immediately re-injured. That includes Rashad Bateman, who's now multiple weeks with his foot injury, which has made Devin Duvernay live in fantasy. You may not like it, but this is what peak waiver wire plug and play performance looks like. Isn't correct any?
No one likes it. Okay, no. Let's just be honest. But last week Duvernay saw 6 targets. He caught 4 of 4 targets. I'm sorry, he saw 6 touches. Maybe I said that 6 touches. Caught all 4 of his targets against Tampa. He scored on a rushing attempt. Obviously, that's not something that we can bank on. But when Bateman was out from week 4 to 6 with the foot injury that he then re-injured, from weeks 4 to 6, Duvernay led Ravens receivers in routes and was targeted on 22% of those routes. That's the second highest on the team behind Mark Andrews at 26%. Again, that shift to the run really dings everybody's opportunity. Like we've seen this with Jets pass catchers. Like Jets pass catchers were really fun for fantasy until they weren't, until they were running 12 routes a game.
And until the Conk Daddy came back in week 8.
Yeah, and I am rating him up for the waiver wire piece you can find on NBCSportsEdge.com tomorrow. But yeah, so Duvernay is like a wide receiver.
You just told people it's Monday.
It's Wednesday actually.
Okay, good.
On the East Coast.
Sorry, continue.
So Duvernay is like a wide receiver, like low end wide receiver 3, 4.
I'd say wide receiver 4.
Okay, because
I'm doing the rankings. I can't imagine any scenario where I have him in the top 36 to be honest.
Right. And honestly, he's not even running that many downfield routes. Like he's a burner. Like he's definitely very fast, but they're not using him as a deep threat at all.
He is very, very fast. He was shot out of a cannon on that rushing touchdown. Yeah. A very elite return man. But I mean, maybe I'm speaking too soon. I do have a hard time envisioning him in the top 36. Mm-hmm. But stranger things.
Well, with what 6 teams on a bye, I don't know.
Is this the 6-team bye week this week?
I believe it is 16. 6 teams are on a bye.
Oh, boy. One of whom we will talk about after this, the San Francisco 49ers. We'll be right back. It's a weekend of must-watch events on NBC and Peacock. It all begins with the horses and the Breeders' Cup Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by Tigers. Clemson Tigers taking on Notre Dame and South Bend, and capped off with Saturday Night Live, hosted this week by Denny Carter. That part's not true. The action continues Sunday with the NASCAR Cup Series Championship at 3 p.m. Eastern, and wraps up with the Titans battling the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. All of it on NBC and Peacock. And don't forget, download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It is available in your app store today. Yeah, producer Adam informs us the Browns on bye, the Cowboys on bye, Broncos bye, Giants bye, Steelers bye, 49ers bye, everyone on bye.
Yeah, so many.
Yeah, Denny. We've been telling Denny for weeks he's hosting SNL this week, but it's not true.
Yeah, God, I did sign up. You
do sign up. Actually, people don't know this is how it works. Yeah,
we passed around the sheet of paper, and Pat Corain passed. You passed. I said, I'll do it. Yeah, sure. Why not?
I chose Jack Harlow over you last weekend. Do you know who Jack Harlow is, by the way, Denny? Be honest.
No, I have no idea.
Okay, good. That's actually good. No offense to SNL, but I'm glad you don't know who Jack Harlow is.
I've never heard that name.
You should never know who Jack Harlow is. 49ers are on bye, Denny, which is really, really bad news for my dynasty team, which was already very 49er heavy with Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. And then Christian McCaffrey arrived on the San Francisco 49ers, who I also have in my dynasty team. Now I have no one to play this week. The question is, when the 49ers come off bye, is this going to be a big enough skill core for all these players? Because Brandon Ayuk had been hot before CMC got there. George Kittle had been hot before CMC got there. Then CMC comes in, 26 touches in his first full game as a 49er, dominating all the high-value touches. Deebo Samuel wasn't even playing. He'll be second in line for the high-value touches. Although Christian McCaffrey is making the entire offense better, is he going to be taking away too many valuable touches from Brandon Ayuk and from George Kittle?
Yeah, man. For everybody, this is purely a CMC offense now. It's his ship now, whatever that phrase that means.
Oh, man. It's look at me. Look at me. I'm the captain now. Show.
Yes.
Show. And then Tom Hanks. Show. Yeah. And his New England accent.
He's the captain now.
Captain Phillips, directed by Paul Greengrass, 2013 Universal Pictures.
Jeez. I've never seen it. Sorry.
It's really good, actually. And I think Universal Pictures is talking about NBC Comcast. So
I should see it in that case. I don't watch the game and I don't watch movies.
You don't, unless there's a horror movie made before 1991. Then you've seen it 10 times.
All right, back to the Niners. McCaffrey. Look at the pass catching stuff is going to ruin the rest of this offense. He ran 20 routes on 29 Garoppolo dropbacks against the Rams, right? He was targeted on 9 of them. I mean, what? That's outrageous. 18 carries. Yeah, no, like Debo is like generously a wide receiver too going forward.
No. I think Debo honestly might stabilize.
I don't know. I think that McCaffrey's going to take a lot of those short area targets that Debo used to feast on. I don't know, man.
I will keep Debo in the top 24 for sure. I will say that.
Okay.
For sure. Probably
that's
18
fair.
for sure.
That's fair. But the wide receiver 1 season for Debo, I think that's over. Ayuk will be game script dependent. He's like one of the few like really good receivers who is game script dependent because of all the weapons around him and the fact that Kyle Shanahan wants to run the ball 58 times a game, no matter what. And then George Kittle. So here's the thing. George Kittle is a zone buster. This is what the Zoomers are calling him this. Okay. He's great against zone, not great against any other kind of defense that anybody else is playing. So you can play
horrible
him
against the box and 1.
What did you say?
He's horrible against the box and 1. I'm sorry, Denny.
Yeah, exactly.
Horrible joke.
Which is something I know about for sure. But yeah, McCaffrey messes up the rest of this offense big time, and I think folks who have Ayuk, who have Debo, need to be mentally prepared for that.
And with Kittle, it's not just that he's like losing targets; it's that the running game is more lethal again, and we know when the running game is lethal, a big part of that is George Kittle throwing hellacious blocks. And
and Kittle's going to want to do that, which is unfortunate. But what I think we have, and you and I were in agreement on this on last week on the Thursday show with Kyle and Crane. I think we're entering like McCaffrey ballistic mode. We're entering like prime CMC in Carolina with Cam Newton mode.
Yeah, like his first full game of the 49ers, he became the 11th player in league history to have a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in the same game.
Yeah.
So you may be going nuclear if you have a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown.
I know it sounds funny for the consensus number 1 overall pick in fantasy, but he's a league winner, turns out.
Yeah. You may be going nuclear if you do that. And you also may be going nuclear if you come off bye against the Los Angeles Chargers, who, if it were not for the Houston Texans, would have by far the worst run defense in the entire league.
Is that what's happening? Because
that is what's happening in week 10.
McCaffrey's rushing over under has to be like 199.5.
Please just do not pull your hamstring for no reason in Thursday's practice, Christian McCaffrey.
I don't want to talk about it.
We are begging you. Yeah, I hate to even put that out into the world. Terrace Marshall, someone we do want to put out in the world because someone we promoted forever, then we quickly abandoned the entire. By we, the royal we, I mean the entire fantasy industry. Terrace Marshall, never heard of him, never hyped him in my life, never accused Patrick Crane of trying to turn him into a superstar. I think Crane was really high on Terrace Marshall, but we're back in. I hear. What's the deal?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. He's the wide receiver 2 in Carolina. Now that Robbie Anderson is gone, he's running nearly all the routes in the offense. Now, DJ Moore is dominating. I think he has nearly 40% of the team's targets over the past 2 weeks, like 50% of the air yards. So insane domination there. PJ Walker's improved accuracy and downfield aggressiveness. He actually has, listen to this, PJ Walker over the last 2 weeks, 4th highest average depth of target. I couldn't think of what ADOT.
No, sorry, that's another one. Wow, I remember that.
And 4th highest ADOT in the league. So he is being aggressive downfield. That's good for Moore. That's good for Terrace Marshall, who's out there a lot. Now, the Panthers are one of the run heaviest teams over the past 2 weeks. They desperately do not want to throw the ball. I do think that they are going to be forced to throw the ball more often than not. And that could be good for Terrace Marshall. Look, this is the same guy who we all touted as a very gifted, very productive receiver coming into the league 1 year ago. It didn't work out. Injuries, dysfunction in the organization, who knows? But he's back, and this time it counts.
Was it really only 1 year ago? I was thinking he was like a 3rd-year pro. That's how fast.
No, it was 2021, I think.
That's how fast things move. It was 2021. That's how fast things move. PJ Walker, man, first off, we don't want Baker Mayfield to play again. No offense to Baker Mayfield, but PJ Walker looked directly in Tom Hanks' eyes and said, "I'm the captain now. Like, this is his ship."
I'm really hoping that it is his ship. Yeah.
So the Hail Mary he completed, first of all, you can't even call it a Hail Mary. The Hail Mary he completed to DJ Moore, because it wasn't like a jump ball that he went up and got in a crowd. It was a seed, like an absolute seed.
Fantastic.
67.6 air yards via Next Gen Stats. That was the longest completed. That was the most air yards in a completed pass in the Next Gen era, which goes back to 2016.
Really?
Yeah. And so if you try to find anyone who's like, well, DJ Moore has come back, it was only because of the Hail Mary. So first off, it wasn't a Hail Mary. Second off, they were inches away from converting an 81-yard touchdown earlier in the game.
Yeah.
There seems to be something cooking here. 13 receptions for DJ Moore over the past 2 weeks. Are we back in on DJ Moore, Denny? Is DJ Moore maybe in the top 30? I think he's definitely back in the top 36, aka wide receiver 3. You're playing him, especially with 6 teams on bye. Could he get back in the top 30, maybe even the top 24?
I have a tendency to get excited, as you know, as listeners know. I get a little too amped. So I'm trying to ratchet back a little bit on the take I want to give on DJ Moore. And I'll say that I believe, as calmly as I can, that he is a top 24 option starting now. Okay, so I don't want to say that he's a wide receiver 1, but I do want to say that this new approach, this new quarterback who has been good, he's up there among the league leaders in completion rate over expected. I know that's another one you love.
I actually do. It is very telling. It's just very hard for you guys to say on the podcast.
It is really. It's hard to talk like a robot. But it's fantastic. Look, PJ Walker, he looks to Moore. He looks to now Terrace Marshall, and pretty much no one else. No one else is getting Deontay Foreman got all the carries this week, 24 carries. I love that as someone who recommended him as the top waiver pickup last week. Not to pat myself on the back, but got to do that sometimes. I think DJ Moore's receiving profile is that of a wide receiver 2.
For PJ Walker, it's look to Moore, look to Marshall. If neither open, delete your account. And he hasn't deleted his account yet, because to him, they're always open. He can get them the ball, unlike Baker Mayfield.
He's throwing incredibly well. I mean, it's not just that one ball. Like against the Bucks, he was dominant on those downfield throws.
And we know he's got a volatile skill set, PJ Walker. There's going to be some down weeks, but if you're the Carolina Panthers, who are both tanking and just trying to evaluate for future seasons, why would you not stick with PJ Walker and just see if there's something here? Because we thought there was something there when he was basically the XFL MVP. Now we're just seeing, and please make DJ Moore live. Just please do it.
I think it's happening. I think it's already happened, and it will continue to happen on a bad team. Like, this is still a bad team.
My family needs bread. My family needs shoes. So please
and for some reason, the weekly performances of fantasy players affect your income.
They do. It was affecting my income horribly, Denny, is Melvin Gordon. Who I don't actually even have that much Melvin Gordon, but in a league after I had Javonte Williams, he got injured. I traded Kareem Hunt straight up for Melvin Gordon. It hasn't gone according to plan. That would be because of Latavius Murray, who I believe you have written up in your column this week. Why is that, Denny?
Well, look, it is very much a split backfield against the Jaguars this past week. Melvin Gordon started the game for Denver. He took, I believe, every snap for the first 2 drives. Murray didn't come in until the Broncos' 3rd drive, which was in the 2nd quarter, and they rotated from there on out. Now, Latavius Murray has been more efficient on his touches, on his carries, I should say, but Melvin Gordon still has the edge with the pass catching role. Not that it means a whole lot, honestly, in such a terrible offense, but against the Jags, Melvin Gordon ran 22 routes on 35 dropbacks for Denver, whereas Murray ran only 11 routes on 35 dropbacks. So it's clear, in negative game script, especially, Murray is not going to get there, as the Zoomers say, without some touchdown luck. But he does seem to be the preferred option near the goal line in the green zone inside the 10-yard line. I'll think of 15 other ways to describe that kind of touch as we go here. So for the RB thirsty among us, and I count myself in that group, Latavius is looking not terrible.
Yeah, the United States, we need to start treating Britons went out. We used to be under their yoke. Now they're one of our greatest allies. They're in like almost a pseudo constitutional crisis, and we send over the Denver Broncos and Jacksonville Jaguars. Just let us apologize to the people.
The Broncos have been on my TV constantly for the past 8 weeks.
To the people of Old Albion, we are sorry. It won't happen again, except for every other time we send football games to England. It will never happen again.
I mean, the well is poisoned with the Jaguars, right?
It is, and frankly, it's a diplomatic incident. What's already happening. And they might try, the British politicians, the Conservative Party, they might try to score some cheap political points by banning our football imports. And could you really blame them at this point?
No, I couldn't.
Another person who was in England and presumably now back in America was Latavius Murray's teammate, Greg Dulcich. He's the guy. He's like the new Dan Arnold, except for actually good. We're required to talk about him every week. What's the angle on Dulcich this week?
I'm so excited about Greg Dulcich. Come on, man. Crazy. Like, he's run basically all the routes for the past 3 weeks. He doesn't block. This is the dream, Pat. We finally found the tight end who A, is terrible at blocking, B, isn't asked to block. Okay, he's never out there on every Denver drop back. He had a pretty nice game against the Jags, like 4 catches for 67 yards on 5 targets. Not exactly like huge volume, but he still is like the third or fourth option in the passing game, in a passing game that's pretty down bad. But I mean, like his role is very fantasy friendly. I would say like a Cade Otton, something, things of that nature.
He's in the Cade Otton zone.
Although Dulcich is better, than he's actually really good.
He is, and it's all his value isn't really dependent on anyone else. Whereas Cade Otton, Cameron Brate could come back in any given moment, and whereas Greg Dulcich, he's like the leader of the Cade Otton tier at this point. He's ahead of Cade Otton.
I do think that he's a top 12 tight end.
I don't know. That's well, even as bad. Let's just say it's always harder when you actually sit down to look and be like, well, I don't know, maybe he's not a top 12.
Well, I'm playing him over Pitts.
He's actually, Kyle Pitts scored a touchdown. I don't know if you heard.
I know, I heard.
Top 12 actually isn't that crazy for Greg Dulcich. He probably will be this week with 6 teams on bye. Well, actually, if he were playing, he would be. The Broncos are not. Right. They're on bye. Yeah, Broncos country, by the way. Let's ride back to America and coach Russell Wilson. You've been banished because you kept everyone up with your knee highs on the way to England. So yeah, guess who's flying Delta Airlines back to Philadelphia and then connecting to Denver through there? You are, because you're not allowed on the team's private plane anymore.
Oh well.
Dan, we'll go a little rapid fire to end the show here. Treylon Burks, you claim, may be coming off injured reserve this week. True or not?
Yeah, I mean, he has the toe injury. He should be back this week. He was second in targets per route run before his toe injury. But again, he has a decent piece of the pie, but it's a very small pie in Tennessee when we're talking about the passing game. Thankfully, Ryan Tannehill will be back and will be starting for the Titans. I'm guessing this week, but eventually, because it could not have gone worse with Malik Willis. And I do think he was undermined a bit, but with Malik Willis, there are no receivers you can start in 12-team leagues for the Titans. With Tannehill, I think you could start Burks as a borderline wide receiver 3.
Too high.
7 wide receiver.
He'd be in the top 48. Treylon Burks. So I would call him a wide receiver 4.
Okay, I'll go with that.
There's 6 teams on bye this week, man. Which we're gonna. I can already tell we're gonna have to say endlessly on every podcast. I don't know. There's 6 teams on bye this week. That kind of thing.
Well, it's true. I mean, you end up ranking guys way differently. So it's oh yeah, Burks is number 25 this week.
Yeah, exactly. He's a wide receiver 11. He's 1 spot behind AJ Brown.
Yep.
Because then 1 spot behind him is Robbie Anderson, and then Richie James. So that's who we're down to. Denny's not laughing, so I should stop talking. Denny, Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah.
Apparently someone in your column. Why?
Because Devontae Parker.
I love Tyquan Thornton, for the record.
Yeah. Well, so his debut usage was unbelievable. Saw 9 touches, I believe. Since then, they seem to have forgotten that he's on the team. I'm hoping Devontae Parker's absence will, put him into. I almost said thrust him into the lineup, and I just decided to not say that.
You wanted to try to pivot away from thrust,
but then I went back and I said it.
And then you brought great attention to the use of the word thrust.
Well, I should say that Adam, our producer, can just edit that out. And no
Danny, I've got 3 children under the age of 6, and you're ever saying the word thrust on the podcast.
I hear at least 2 of them crying.
Yeah, they might overhear this.
My kids have left the house, it sounds like. So I think I am in trouble here at home.
Guess what? We were lying to you. You actually were hosting SNL this week, but guess who's not hosting SNL anymore? They don't say stuff like thrust on SNL. You're off.
No, there's never been anything inappropriate.
No, you're off.
All right. Well, I'll try again next week. Anyway, Thornton, it's like a very fringy type play. Nobody is worth playing except for Jacoby Myers, but he's going to be in my column anyway.
And there's 6 teams on bye. I don't know if you heard this. You want to talk about an ultimate 6 teams on bye play? Khalif Raymond, who I actually told you weren't allowed to talk about, but you are allowed to talk about.
Thank you. The speech is free now.
It is. It's back.
So we're happy about that, and that means that I can talk about Khalif Raymond now. For some reason, my find function. Oh, there it goes. So Raymond,
even your Google Doc does not want to talk about
it. It was not coming up. Khalif Raymond, available in 99% of leagues. I know you're shocked. Has solid underlying metrics, as he did for much of 2021. And by that I mean yards per route run, targets per route run, like that. He pops in those categories for some reason. He did last season too. He ran 43% of his routes from the slot this past week against the Dolphins. He has 13 catches on 17 targets over his past 3 games in a full-time role in the Lions offense. He's a productive guy, and Josh Reynolds being dinged up and not seeing the sort of targets that we're used to seeing, perhaps, has freed up, I think, Khalif Raymond as for now, the wide receiver 2 in Detroit.
Denny, who is the QB of the week besides Justin Fields? QB streamer, I should say, of the week. We're not allowed to talk about Justin Fields, even though he's under 50% rostered, because there's a certain someone else I want you to be forced to talk about.
Yeah, are you going to force me to talk about Andy Dalton?
Andrew Dalton. That's
him. Andrew.
So he's the non-Justin Fields streamer of the week. Why is that?
In my column, I say I take no pleasure in reporting that Dalton is a worthwhile pickup this week. 6 teams on bye, folks. I don't know if we've mentioned that. Look, he force feeds the Saints' offensive weapons, including Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave. That's good. That some might say that's great, and it actually he has created a way more fantasy friendly environment than Jameis Winston did in New Orleans. He takes on a Baltimore defense that is sort of middling in a lot of metrics through against the pass. I think the Ravens should be able to push the Saints into a pass heavy script, unlike this past week where the Raiders laid down pretty much in the
worst performance by any team all season.
I mean, truly unbelievably bad. And you know what? And Dalton still scored 18 fantasy points against them. So, I think that he can be usable. You really love him in Superflex. He was like a free pickup 3 weeks ago in Superflex, and you can continue riding him. I think that he gets there again for fantasy purposes against the Ravens.
We end the show with the single most important topic. I got a sneak preview. I feel like this one's very controversial. Who is your kicker of the week?
All right. Hear me out. Please do not censor me once again. Greg Joseph.
I actually do. I feel like I need to shout you down Greg, before you even get into this. I think, is Greg Joseph the worst kicker in the NFL?
He's not having a fun season so far. He leads the league in what we call missed field goals.
So does he actually lead the league? That's not just anecdotally true? That's actually true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
certainly it scans, as a Zoomer might say.
Look, we follow the process, and the process says that the Vikings have a good matchup this week against the Commanders. They are a 3.5 point favorite as of this recording. We want kickers on teams that are favored. The Commanders, meanwhile, have given up multiple field goal attempts in each of their 4 losses this season. If Joseph can actually put, the football through the crossbars somewhere between them, we might be in business, folks.
The Commanders love to lure teams into rock fights. It does feel like a high field goal attempt week, and he'll make at least 2 of his 5 field goal attempts. So hopefully you're not one of those devilish leagues where you lose points for missed field goals.
Yeah, got to get out of those leagues.
It wasn't enough to send Mike Zimmer into retirement for Greg Joseph. He's now trying to do it to Kevin O'Connell. He's a very young man with a young family. So Greg Joseph, I hope you're happy.
Yeah, but you can confidently play him.
You can. And I hope you're happy for listening to this podcast. It's over. We had a good time. It's Monday, maybe Tuesday, perhaps even Wednesday, as Denny alluded to.
Who knows?
But thank you for listening. Check out Denny's Waiver Wire column, which should be live by the time you're listening to this. Not if you're listening on late Monday evening. Tuesday morning, though, it'll be up before you get your bids in. On Tuesday evening, be a busy day at the site on Tuesday, the trade deadline. Teams seem a lot more active than usual this year. Teams are finally starting to realize that a lot of draft picks are just kind of like toilet paper. Like, you might as well get like an established player for them. So keep it locked on NBCSportsEdge.com, powered by Rotoworld. For Denny Carter, I'm Patrick Daugherty. We'll be back later this week.